Hey guys, welcome to the show. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing one of my favorite films, Christopher Nolan's Interstellar. We do our best to capture the nature of time and the love between father and daughter over some cold ones. As always, if you enjoy the show, please give us a rating and subscribe. And now, on to the podcast. Get it to the great, we're live, brother.
What's up, man?
Well, we should go ahead and let the people know, if they already can't tell, we have upgraded our audio equipment, so we should sound nice and crisp in their beautiful ears.
That's the idea.
We won't sound like drunken shitheads on a shitty mic now, so...
Now we'll sound like drunken shitheads on a nice microphone.
And they can listen to every detail, every little breath.
That's right.
So how you been, man?
I'm good. Well, it's February 2021 right now.
Yeah.
And we're living through Snowmageddon 2021.
Yeah.
And that's not exclusive to Ohio either, because I'm pretty sure like every state, not in the entire North America or whatever, but...
I would say like it's probably affected a good 30 of them.
Like even like Texas
Yeah.
is covered in snow right now.
Yeah.
I know they're having a hard time dealing with it. But yeah, there's like a foot of snow outside, and we're pizza delivery drivers, and that always makes life a little exciting.
Dude, I got stuck in someone's driveway yesterday, and like on one of the like more busy roads that we deliver on, and it was just like not good. There's like my whole car was basically in the street, but my front two tires were stuck, and it's like I literally had to dig myself out like with my foot, and it fucking sucked.
Do you keep a shovel in your car with you?
No, just my foot in my car.
Oh, okay.
I literally like was underneath my car though, like kicking out ice and snow, and it was terrible. And it's not like snow that's like just dust off. It's basically ice. Like
Oh yeah, it's hard compacted snow.
yeah. Other than that, I'd say life is pretty good right now, and I'm sure you've thought extremely deep about life after watching this movie.
Yeah, I have. You know, it really sucks that me and you work together and we watch these movies and we can't talk about them
Yeah.
for like 2 weeks after we watch it. And that's been a struggle for the past, week or so.
We're
'Cause
abstinent.
we have to talk about everything except for the movie.
We're like, yeah, man, so did you watch the movie? And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, uh-huh. And you're like...
All right, we can't say nothing else.
And we're like, uh-huh. And we're both thinking to ourselves, man, this movie was fucking incredible. And I'm so jealous because you got to like watch this movie for the first time. There's a lot in this movie, and we're not going to go scene by scene. We've already discussed that, because if we did, it would take 4 hours to get through everything we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, it's a long movie. I mean, it runs about 2 hours and 45
40,
minutes,
yeah.
maybe. Like, 3 with the credits, probably.
Yeah.
But
This is one of those movies that every time I watch it, I feel like I've taken something new from it. Since I'm more of an adult now, I get to sit down and say, I'm watching a movie, and because I have allocated the time for it, not like, oh, I'm just throwing something on to like fill up my time. It's like, no, this is a reward because I barely have time to do shit.
like, you really want to invest yourself when
Yes.
you watch a movie like
And
this.
that also removes the the ability to watch a multitude of things, like have like quantity over quality. So I'm constantly picking I'm like, this has to be a fucking groundbreaking movie for me to want to invest these 2 hours that I'll never get back. I love this movie, and I just want to know what your general thoughts are when we start off this conversation, because we're gonna get into the thick of it.
So we've avoided talking about this for a couple weeks now, and I have criticisms about this movie, but like overall, I mean, like, this movie is amazing. We might disagree over some aspects of it, which I think will be exciting for the podcast.
Okay, I didn't think there was gonna be too many disagreements on this one. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
yeah, no, I
Okay.
purposely
With being a bitch.
misled you in a way. Yes, I'm purposely being a bitch. Damn it! I think there are aspects of this movie that are like downright genius, and then I think there are some parts that I find a little messy, but it's not exclusive to this movie. I think it's more of like an attribute of like Christopher Nolan movies in general. And we'll get into it as we go along. But
Okay.
I mean, like, don't get me wrong. This movie, the first time I watched it, I had a few beers, and it was like really late at night. And after it ended, I walked around my house in the dark for like 45 minutes, and I felt like I was still taking in the movie.
Yeah.
Even after it was over.
That's the thing. So again, since it was your first time watching it, I envy the period of time after you watch a movie for the first time, and it like totally like levels you a little bit, and you have to like consider what you watched. I miss that because I know the plot points and I know the movie well. I've seen it plenty of times, say at least 10.
When was the first time that you watched it? Like, did you see it when it came out, or in theaters or nothing?
Dude, I don't know if you ever remember me telling you this. I had seen it. I think maybe I watched it maybe in 2017, something like that. I'm not really. Okay. I'm not sure when I watched it for the first time, but no, it was like at home on like a TV or something, and I would love to see this in IMAX, and I'm hoping like as time passes, because you know how they bring back movies in theaters and stuff for like anniversaries and stuff of like film.
Yeah, I could totally see them doing that with this movie.
I would. When that happens, like if it's 10, 20 years from now, I would love to go see that. I bet there's probably some showing of it every so often during the year somewhere nearby that we could go see it, but like I'd have to look for it. But I would love to see this movie like in IMAX because
I would too. Honestly,
this movie's super immersive. Usually when I don't care about a film, or like, well, let's put it this way. When I'm not concerned about my environment that I'm sitting in, you know, I can kind of just take in a movie like for what it is, I guess. But like, how do I put this? I turned off all my lights. I have a 2-monitor setup for my computer at home, which is where I do like all my media consumption. So have my headphones on. I turned my lights out. It was completely dark in my movie. I turned my second monitor off, and I have it up on my 32-inch 1440p monitor. I just sit there and like sit as close as I can and try to like take in this movie like from a critical angle. I've watched it twice when we did this. So watched it first time to get familiar with it again, and the second run through I was more concerned about what I would say. Probably should go ahead and say what the movie's about. At least lay the groundwork. I mean, if you haven't seen this movie and you're listening to this, do yourself a favor and go watch the movie. Also, you'll probably be really lost when we get to talk about fucking space-time and how that's a major element of the film.
Yeah, I meant to say this in the beginning, actually. We have to drunkenly tackle a movie that's about the space-time continuum, quantum physics, the effect of gravity on time.
This shit excites me. Like, I am at least like have bro science in it, so I should be able to help us out if you're lost.
Yeah, it might be impossible, but it's necessary.
That's right. There's
I think that's the quote from the movie.
There's no time for caution.
I have a question for you, actually.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on Christopher Nolan, the director of this movie? Like, you're a fan?
I am what they would call a fan of Christopher Nolan. I have not seen Tenet or Dunkirk.
You haven't seen Memento either, have you?
I have not. I've seen the Dark Knight films, and I've seen The Prestige, Interstellar, and Inception. So I think I have a decent groundwork to work with. I'm a very big fan of how he writes movies. Mm-hmm. They're very they're grounded in reality. And listen to me, Gitter. Listen to me. All right. The way he writes a movie is usually like it's like a very large theme and filled up with characters that try to fill that theme. He writes a movie for the idea he's trying to convey, and he has every element work towards that singular idea. Rather than using...
I agree with that.
Rather than letting the viewer piece together everything for what the characters did to create an idea, it's kind of backwards. It's rather an idea, all the elements of the film, the theme, the plot, special effects, things like that, they serve the singular idea.
He's a very technical writer and director. Yeah. Like, everything does serve a purpose.
Yeah.
And I respect that. I mean, I definitely do. Would you consider him to be one of your favorite directors,
yes.
in modern times?
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime I think of a singular director, I do think of Nolan. He's kind of like one of the last hurrah, at least as far as like pop culture goes. I feel like there is prolific directors, but when I think of current time, I only think of Christopher. Like I can think of like Lynch, Hitchcock, Kubrick, but
Tarantino. Probably.
Yeah, that's true.
Modern times.
I shouldn't. I didn't even think of him. But yes, exactly. Yeah, like Tarantino, Nolan. I'm trying to think of like anybody else that would like fill the role of like a prolific director with like a very like rich and full like filmography.
Another one that comes to mind is David Fincher. He's one of my favorites. Seven, Fight Club, Gone Girl.
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
He's done a bunch of. He's like known for like dark thrillers and all that.
Poor Neil.
He's one of my favorites.
Poor Neil gets his fucking throat. Poor Neil's throat. Dude, that's a graphic scene. Like,
oh yeah,
that whole movie. When I watched it, I was thinking to myself like, this has kind of been a pretty reserved film, and then it's like,
oh, it goes over the top on that one.
Dude, it's fucking nutty.
Not to give spoilers for a movie that's like not the subject right now, but Gone Girl is a very good film. It came out the same year that this film came out.
2014. Yeah.
So the thing with Christopher Nolan, he's not one of my favorite directors, but I've enjoyed every movie I've seen by him. Like, I think they're all like above good. I mean, they're all great for the most part. I've seen Memento, the Batman movies, Inception, and now this. I really respect that he makes like blockbuster movies.
Yeah.
Like,
they're
huge for a smart audience. Like, that's like his like top thing that he's got going for him.
Yeah, big budget, but isn't like just full of Michael Bay explosions.
He's smart about his budget too, because this movie was made on a $165 million budget. While we were talking here, I was actually Googling some of the most expensive movies ever made, and a lot of them are like Star Wars and Avengers, stuff like that.
Avatar.
Those movies have like twice the budget as this, and they don't look nearly as good as this movie.
Do you know
does.
why that is?
His use of practical effects over CGI.
Yes, and this is one of the points I want to talk about, because even like in Batman, for example, those buildings are real. He didn't have to make the set, like Michael Keaton Batman, for example. Like, that is like a very grungy comic book like setting, and then you have like real people in it, and it doesn't work in my like. I hate Michael Keaton Batman, and I hate George Clooney Batman. But everybody does.
I've actually never seen the George Clooney Batman.
Well, consider yourself lucky, because it's a fucking nightmare. They
saw
have
the
nipples. They have nipples, Getter.
Oh yeah, no, I'm aware. It's the Joel Schumacher Batman. He's the one that directed it, and he like made it like a cartoon, kind of. But like
it's got Jim Carrey and Uma Thurman,
Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze.
The Mr. Freeze. Sorry.
Yeah, I've seen the Michael Keaton Batman where Danny DeVito is like the Penguin.
Mm-hmm. He actually does that very well.
Good choice for casting, but I do not like that movie at all.
No, it's terrible.
Yeah, the Nolan Batman movies are like the quintessential Batman films. Like, at least right now they are.
But there's a multitude of reasons why that works. Of course, like Heath Ledger, in my opinion, held that up. Dude, Anne Hathaway is in she's in Dark Knight Rises.
She plays Catwoman, right? I haven't seen that since it was in theaters.
I was born on sorry. Yeah, the use of practical effects, like the set for the Ranger. Like, do you know how they have like that over the shoulder camera on the Ranger, like littered throughout the film, like the spaceship?
Yeah.
So like the Ranger is part of the Endurance.
Yeah, so you get those like side shots when they're in space and stuff,
and that's practical. I don't watch The Mandalorian, but I'm very aware of like how I've seen a few episodes and I know what it's about. But they use there's not a set there, and it's all digital, and the camera tracks around the background. And so when the actors move through the set, which is a screen basically behind them, like almost like a photo shoot, like, you know how like the white background curves underneath the floor, like so like an L shape, and there's like a little curve on the ground where the floor meets the wall of the background, kind of like that. They project the background onto that, and when the actors move through the set, the camera tracks the background and it moves with the actor, and it's really fucking cool. And that's how they shoot The Mandalorian. Like the canyon scenes, all that. That shit's on the background. And now what Nolan did is the same thing with the Ranger in space. That is like a practical effect, because you have that prop, which is the spaceship, and it is suspended. And like, we can show clips after me and you are done with the podcast. But like the background is there, and like it's tracked. I should have done a little bit more research, but I'm aware that like that is the, what do you call it? I'm trying to think of a word and it's leaving my brain. This is what happens when you start drinking. Basically, that's what they did. Sorry. You can't finish my thought for me because I'm literally, this doesn't exist in the English dictionary anymore apparently. But it's what they did. That's the God, what is that word, man?
The point that you're trying to get at is the effects in general in this movie are done very well.
Yeah.
And for me, there wasn't a single time in the movie where I was like looking at things and like thinking about how it was like CGI or something, because my brain didn't notice.
Yeah, no, it's the movie's seamless.
When like their spaceship lands on like different planets, like I felt like I was watching a spaceship land on a
It's super
foreign
immersive.
planet.
Yeah, you don't feel removed in any way. The editing of scenes, like transitions, are like seamless.
They have like a momentum to them. It's a pro and a con at the same time. The way he edits the film, there's always momentum like flowing constantly, but at the same time, sometimes like certain moments aren't given the chance to breathe.
I will 100% agree with you on that. For this exact reason, I'm thinking of a specific part in the movie. When science is brought up throughout the movie, it feels like there is not enough time to digest what they just said before we move on from the scene.
That's what I was thinking.
And we should say that the way the audio is edited, the music, I swear it's always in front of dialogue. And that's
I'm so glad you said that.
when the combines, for example, when the combines are messed up, you can't hear what they're really saying unless you're like super attentive. So like if I watch this movie with someone else and someone's eating popcorn in the theater, or like if there's a lot of ambient noise throughout my surrounding, like if I'm in a living room and there's like people upstairs or like somebody doing something in the kitchen, you can't hear. If you don't have surround sound, you're gonna miss like little details, and like that's a gripe that people had with like Tenet. Like no one knows what the fuck anyone's saying, and it's the same thing with just it's gotten progressively worse.
I had the same issue when I saw Inception in theaters.
Really?
Yeah, I remember
that makes sense.
dialogue being very hard to hear in that movie.
Because Nolan's films are so like sub heavy.
It's a good thing that the music is so damn good in this movie, because like usually
Yes.
like the dialogue is being drowned out by music. My watching experience went something like there'd be an action scene and I'd turn the volume down a little bit, and then there'd be a dialogue scene and I'd turn the volume way up because I couldn't hear the dialogue. Mm-hmm. And then immediately after, I'd be deafened.
You'll be
by
I was gonna say because
by very loud organ Hans Zimmer music.
the transition from I wanted to bring this up because the transition from dialogue to swells of an organ are like littered throughout the movie. It works really well. I like that, but because the movie is so science heavy, a little bit on the extreme of concepts for a movie, becomes very hard to recognize things that are happening throughout the film and like process them without like multiple viewings. And like we're lucky enough because we're obviously analyzing the movie and like we've had time to think about it, and like obviously like this is part of our hobby, so we have time to do it. It's hard for a viewer to like grasp concept of space-time. Even Anne Hathaway and Cooper and Romley when they're on the Endurance, it feels like they're talking like this. And they're talking very quietly and whispering, and you have trickles of Hans Zimmer in the background, and it becomes kind of hard to hear what they're trying to explain. And it doesn't help serve the plot because the plot is super complex.
I think the scene that's most guilty of this is when Michael Caine's character, Professor Brandt, is on his deathbed.
I agree.
I think his dialogue is supposed to serve like a really like turning point in the story, like finding out that our heroes, there was never any hope for them to return back to Earth.
There's no plan A.
And like while Michael Caine's character is explaining this, all I could think was, what? What did he say? Because the music is like swelling underneath his dialogue. And I'm sure like the dialogue was really good in that part. I think I watched the movie 3.5 times. I still have no idea. No fucking idea what he said in that part.
Well, I will fill you in because I also had trouble hearing what he said.
I know like what like the story was trying to say because like the plot kind of fills you in afterwards, but his dialogue specifically in that part was like very hard to read for me.
I think this also could have to deal with a little bit of the acting because Michael Caine is dying, but like it sounds like he's caught between I'm trying to whisper and I can't breathe and I'm kind of crying, and it's really hard to like figure out. I think even Michael Caine might have had trouble acting this. Well, first off, he says, Murph, I lied. There was no plan A. I lied to them. And Murph never finds out if Cooper, her dad, knew that they were going to die because they all leave in the hopes of coming back home, which is fucking terrible. Like, terrible. And Matt Damon, fuck you, Matt Damon, for being an asshole in this movie. He knows he's in on the lie, and he has to say that Michael Caine, his character, Dr. Brand, like, had to destroy his humanity for that, which is, like, really, like, it's really, really emotionally intense. Like, it does change the plot. But you only get to find out what Michael Caine said because they get to be filled in from Murph's video recording that she sends to the Endurance, and that TARS beams down to Case. That's how you know. But, like, Michael Caine when he died, and then, like, sometimes Anne Hathaway, when Anne Hathaway comes back, Brand, when she comes back and sees Romley, it's so hard to hear what she says to Romley if you're not paying attention. She's like, why didn't you sleep? And even Romley's like, you know, his little accent that he does. It's so hard to hear what he says if you're not paying attention. That being said, the audio, the music might help because it still conveys the emotion.
Yeah, I agree with that. The music really does like kind of like sway the way you should feel like from scene to scene. But when it comes to movies, I'm a big dialogue guy. Like I want to hear lengthy dialogue, you know, scenes and discussions and whatnot. I just felt like it was just drowned out a lot of the time in this movie. But like the sound design, like in general, is really good. Like aside, like if you like ignore like some parts where like the dialogue is a little quiet, the sound design of like when they're in space, you know how like it gets really silent during certain parts of this movie when they launch off from Earth into space, and there's like this weird silence that comes afterward. It really like conveys the vastness and loneliness
Of space. Yes.
Like perfectly. And I feel like other space movies that I've seen have not really done that before. You might get like loud explosions or something in another space movie, but in this movie, like when Matt Damon's character Dr. Mann, when he blows the hatch on the Endurance, you're expecting like an explosion, but you get like maybe like a quarter of a second of a loud noise, and then it's like complete like blank vastness immediately after.
And that's real science.
Like that sound design is like amazing in this movie.
Well, it's because Nolan, he obviously we've said that he's technical, like he's a technical director. He worked very closely with like actual scientists to help create this film, and that I don't know. I don't know if it's GQ or Vogue, but they do like physicist reacts or like Hunter reacts or like this person goes back through their filmography. Like they've had like Willem Dafoe and stuff like that. But one time there was an astronaut. I can't remember who it was. It's leaving me right now. But I apologize if I'm breathing really heavy to the mic. I kind of don't realize that I am.
First time with new equipment.
Yeah, it's just trying to make sure our audio picks up really well, but I think it'll be fine. The vacuum of space will not have sound if there's no pressurized atmosphere, like, you know, air. When they're in the Endurance and they're in the space station and they're in the Ranger and stuff, like you can hear sound, but like in space there is no sound because there's no air for the sound to travel through. And so, like you said, the sound design works in the favor, and it's smart. It's so smart and it's so immersive. Like, cause like you said, you are expecting an explosion. Cause like in Star Wars, you hear the fucking TIE fighters zoom by and shit. Well, that shit doesn't exist in reality. But like in real life, like if a real astronaut, like shit like this happens, there is no sound. Like there's no sound. And it works so well in this movie because that is such a high tension moment when the Endurance does after the docking is, after it's an imperfect lock, you get like that swell of like a violin and like that high note, and like it's so perfect. I'm a big music guy. Like I'm huge on film score. Like I'll throw film score on in the car while we're delivering pizzas, dude. I'll do it. You've told me before. I love it.
I'm not quite that way, but I mean, like I appreciate film scores. I just don't listen to them in my free time.
I'll listen to classical music like when I'm working on schoolwork and stuff. Something about classical music, like we all know, like not to be a big pussy, but it creates like emotion, and
there's no shame in that.
I am an extremely emotional person. I've always had like a high like emotional intelligence, and I'm extremely empathetic, and so like I probably feel a little bit more than I want to. It's why I love this movie so much. Anytime I throw the score onto this movie, I have like an extreme sense of loss. which is like one of the main themes of the movie.
The soundtrack for this movie is fantastic. It's a movie about the future and like space exploration, but Hans Zimmer used primarily a like 1930s organ to like compose most of it.
Yeah.
Somehow that like translates to the theme of the movie in a way. It's an odd choice, but the use of that instrument like really plays well to like the visuals of this film. Like, do you think that a score with like electronic instrumentation would have worked better than, like 1930s organ? Or like, do you think that what he used was like good for what it was?
I can't imagine this movie without a different soundtrack. If there was this movie doesn't feel like a space movie. That sounds so like contradictory, but it doesn't feel like a space movie.
I know what you mean.
It doesn't feel like a sci-fi action adventure. I don't feel like the antagonist in this movie, of course, like Matt Damon and like Professor Brand do play a role, but the antagonist,
briefly, yeah,
the antagonist is the fight against time, and so like the score helps the film so much to help convey the fight against time in the morning of time, and I could not imagine it any other way. I almost feel like Christopher Nolan movies, because he does use Hans Zimmer for like the majority of his films, I feel like because they work so closely together, I feel like they cannot exist without each other. And I feel like every element of the movie, they serve each other so well, I feel like you cannot unmarry them.
Piss break.
Now that we're back from break, normally we talk about the beer that we've been drinking at the beginning of the show, but we actually opened up our themed beer a little late today. So today we are drinking Hazecraft IPA by Great Lakes Brewing from Cleveland. I chose the beer today. I specifically chose it because it is a astronaut-themed IPA. So the box says it's inspired by Ohio's surprisingly deep roster of trailblazing astronauts. The art for the can features a spaceship. So I thought that was appropriate for the show.
It is.
Today.
You've already drank yours because I was a little late to the party. Also, we try to figure out our audio for a good hour because we were just setting it up, and this is the first time we've done this. But I had to drink on a Stella Artois. And now I finally opened up the beer that you just chose, which is Hazecraft. It tastes like an IPA.
So you're kind of like in the middle range when it comes to your opinion on it?
It's super bitter. That's all I know. It's good, though. I like it. I'm not mad.
I like it. It's like in the hazier, juicier kind of range of IPAs. And that's like right on my alley. But it's not blowing my mind. It's good. I'd probably buy it again, but...
Well, that's just fun. It's okay if the beer isn't the most stellar thing you've ever had in your life.
I see what you did there.
Oh shit! Yeah, I did. I didn't mean to do that. I guess the pun wasn't intended, but it worked well.
Unintended puns are as smart as intended puns.
That's right. I also chose Stella Artois because Stella, Interstellar, ha ha ha. Do you get it? That's an intended pun. But I also had it at dinner for Valentine's Day, and it dawned on me that might be a good choice to drink in the background after this one because I already knew this was going to be the beer.
It's not a bad choice.
Dinner was good, by the way. It was excellent.
So, moving back into the movie, we've talked about the soundtrack and the sound design and some of the cinematography aspects of the film so far. I wanted to ask you about the casting and the acting. How do you feel about that aspect when it comes to Interstellar?
Well, we already talked about some of maybe the bad parts of the acting. I wouldn't consider them bad in terms of like the worst acting I've ever seen in my life or anything. Like sometimes I felt a little bit removed from like Anne Hathaway's dialogue. I thought like maybe it wasn't the intended direction that it was supposed to be, because sometimes I felt like she was like in between monologue and then like trying to convey emotion.
I agree.
And the same thing with, like we already talked about Michael Caine and when he plays her dad, Professor Brand. We already know that like Michael Caine was in Batman, and so was Anne Hathaway, which we mentioned. So they're repeating.
Michael Caine's a Nolan regular.
Yeah, of course. I think he's in The Dark Knight. Is he in anything else? I thought he might be in The Prestige, but I may be wrong.
He might be in Inception. I haven't seen that movie in like 11 years.
I haven't either. It's been a long time. But anyway, I think Anne Hathaway's character I think she's really good because she conveys like what I feel would be a hardworking, intelligent woman that is very analytical. And when we're introduced to her, I thought the same. Like I thought the same thing. Like when they were introduced at NASA, I think Matthew McConaughey absolutely crushes this role. There are times in this movie where like I want to weep with him. And
Oh yeah, definitely.
one of the reasons why I love this movie so much, it just levels me. Very few movies get me to that point where it's like I can empathize or well, sympathize, I guess would be the word. I can feel the emotion.
Both, maybe.
Yeah. There are a few movies like that and the acting really sells that. Matthew McConaughey playing a dad that has to leave his children behind to go save the world. Also playing a dad and embodying the young man that he never became feels very complete. But yeah, it's perfect. Like anytime there's a crying scene in this movie, I feel like the acting is amazing.
And those are all mostly like Matthew McConaughey that does those scenes, right?
And Murphy's like present character, I should say, like her middle-aged. When she's the same age as when Matthew McConaughey's character Cooper left. When she cries, it's so realistic. I was kind of picking this apart on my second viewing. When she's crying, she says, Dad, I just have to know, like, did you just leave us here to die? Her acting is it's so grounded and real. The way, like, she breaks her thought with, like, gasps and weeps of, like, it's perfect. Yeah, I love that.
Jessica Chastain is a great actress. Almost all of the iterations of the Murph character are really good in this movie.
Even the child, it's amazing.
I think Child Murph is actually one of my favorite characters. Not just in like acting, but I mean like the way it's written and like the way that she's implemented into the story. The casting all over this movie is, I mean, really great in terms of like star names. I mean, like besides like Matthew McConaughey as the lead. But we also have, Anne Hathaway is, like, respectable and, like, pretty awesome in a lot of things.
Matt Damon's character.
Basically uncredited. I mean, Matt Damon was not credited or advertised for this movie.
No, yeah, he, like, just makes his appearance. Because you don't even get to see Matt Damon's character until they arrive on his planet.
And he only has, like, 15 minutes of screen time, maybe?
Yeah.
But aside from that, I mean, like, we have Michael Caine. We have John Lithgow as
Doyle.
I don't know if it's his dad
it's
or if
her.
it's like his.
It's his wife's dad.
His wife's dad.
Because remember he says, "You were born 40 years too early or 40 years too late," and my daughter knew that. God bless her. We have our good, despairing, depressive man, Casey Affleck. He plays a depressed man so well.
He does. I kind of wish that he had more of a bearing on the plot in this movie because, like, I didn't look up the cast before we watched this. Mm-hmm. So the first time, like, Casey Affleck appears on screen, I was like, oh, sweet.
Shit, that's Casey Affleck, yeah.
Like, I mean, we talked about Manchester by the Sea, a couple months ago, and I love that movie. Incredible. And, like, when I saw Casey Affleck on screen, I was, like, psyched. And then, like, his character doesn't really play a big role in the story
that was one of my questions was, do you feel like we missed out a little bit on his character because, again...
A little bit, yeah.
This plays back into, like, some things can go hidden throughout the dialogue because his first son dies. And during the scene of the 23 years messages when they get back from Miller's planet, he mentions that in the clips, he says, I want to name Coop. His name's Jesse, and she said maybe next time, like maybe next time the next kid. But then
I missed that actually.
The following clip that like he does when he has a beard and he's like, "Sorry, Dad, it's been a while." Jesse and everything, and then he says that Grandpa died and everything. Jesse died, and we know that like his kid died from the dust. I guess we didn't say the whole point of the movie is that agriculture, like they need farmers and they need food, and the whole point of the movie is like, not too far in the future that a blight comes and kills all the crops and eventually there'll be no food and people will suffocate and die. And that's the whole reason why they're leaving is because they're trying to find a new inhabitable planet. And that's the underlying basis of the movie. We can continue with the acting. Just for anybody that I guess wanted to know.
The only two other actors I wanted to pinpoint really, Topher Grace
appears
in this movie.
He's like the assistant to like Murphy in the future.
Yeah, his character is here on Wikipedia, he does have a name, but
Getty?
his name's Getty.
And it's never mentioned, I feel like.
It was nice to see like a big name actor like in the spot that he was in, but like his character doesn't really impact the story at all. Like he's just kind of like Murph's love interest, but like he doesn't really have any substantial impact on what the story. But the one I wanted to bring up, and I think before we recorded today, I said that something blew my mind when I read the Wikipedia. Timothy Chalamet plays young Tom.
Yeah, Elizabeth, when I showed her this movie for the first time, just so you know, Elizabeth is my girlfriend, and she loves Timothy Chalamet just like every other white bitch in the world, all right? So
He's a good actor.
he's a dream. I love him. He's so sexy. Look at his face. Look at his cheekbones. Sorry, I don't like Timothy Chalamet for that reason. Because when I showed her this film,
Because your girl obsesses over him.
yeah, I'll be like, babe, I'm right here, and she'll be like, what? Look, Timothy Chalamet isn't hitting up my girlfriend. Ain't no big deal. But listen,
Yeah.
I'm not just like, Elizabeth, look, it's Emma Stone. Isn't she so fucking hot? And then if I say that, I get hit. Like in the shoulder, smacked on the leg. Timothy Chalamet's on the screen. I don't get to hit Elizabeth. No, because I'm a fucking man. Just a little side note for you. But yes, he plays young Tom, and he is only in the first 20 minutes of the film, maybe. But yes, it is a surprise role.
It blew my mind because like he is one of, I can't like tell the future or anything, but I mean like he is a very
Oh, he's gonna be a great actor. Like his resume will be fucking stacked by the time he reaches the age of like George Clooney. Or I'm very excited for his future. I love some of his films.
Yeah, he's already gotten a lot of like acclaim from, what's that movie he did with Armie Hammer?
Call Me by Your Name.
Yeah,
he did that. He did The King. He's in that one movie that Elizabeth has told me to watch forever.
He's going to be in the next Wes Anderson movie, the French Dispatch.
He's going to be in Dune.
Yeah, he's the lead in that movie, right?
Yeah, he plays Tom, I think, or whatever his name is. I don't know.
But he wasn't, Timothy Chalamet isn't given a whole lot of screen time in this movie. But I mean, like, he was like, what, 13 maybe when this was filmed, or around that age maybe.
He probably was like 17 maybe.
Oh, I forgot to mention, Old Murph is played by Ellen Burstyn.
I'm not familiar, but I did see the casting as her.
Have you ever seen Requiem for a Dream?
I have not, and I know it is extremely powerful.
Ellen Burstyn plays an old lady that gets addicted to diet pills in that movie, and it's like insane.
Really?
Like the portrayal of it is absolutely crazy.
Oh wow.
So that's like my reference point for her. Seeing her only appear for like 2 minutes in this movie was a little disappointing, because like when she appeared on screen for the first time, I went, holy fuck, that's Ellen Burstyn. And then she was like out of the movie just as quick.
No character feels out of place in this movie.
I will direct a criticism though.
Go ahead.
I didn't care for Anne Hathaway's character that much in this movie. Not that like she did anything wrong. I think that like her character didn't have enough depth for me to get invested in her.
I feel like she didn't have anything to lose. I feel like she played her and Matthew McConaughey's like chemistry throughout the movie was like, it's actually like really comedic at times. Just because like Matthew McConaughey, his character Cooper, like kind of has a charm about him.
And she like kind of like seemed to reject that charm in a way.
And especially
right?
like when they launch, she's I can't remember the exact frame for like why she says this, but she's like, oh, he's like, well, we should learn to talk, and she's like, oh, well, when not to. And
I liked that line.
There's kind of just another callback to like, you probably watch this movie plenty of times and pick up little things, but like one of my favorite characters in this whole movie is a fucking robot. I love Tars.
Dude, Tars. If they made a spin-off short movie about Tars, I would watch it.
Dude.
Like, make a 30-minute short about this robot alone. It would be a hit.
Dude, Tars. His comedy, he provides the comedic relief throughout the movie quite a bit, along with Matthew McConaughey's character. And, of course, like, in the end, like, they've, like, get reunited and shit, and that made me so happy. Like, just to know that, like, Tars wasn't lost to the fucking ether. That's like one of my favorite characters, and he doesn't have a fucking face.
There's something about the way that the voice acting by Tars is portrayed that made him feel a little bit more human than some of the other main characters.
Yep. he's much better than Anne Hathaway's character.
I would take Tars over Anne Hathaway in this movie.
Yeah.
And I love Anne Hathaway and other things.
My point again, I feel like Anne Hathaway, my criticism may be that maybe she was a little bit lost throughout the direction to take her character's emotions and some of the scenes.
It was just like her two character traits were she was the daughter of Professor Bran, and she had like a love interest on a planet, like one of the lost planets that they were going to look at, and that's all there really was
Edmonds.
to her character. Yeah, Edmonds.
I mean, she ends up on Edmonds' planet.
I think like my investment in Anne Hathaway's character can be summed up in the scene where Matthew McConaughey gets launched into the black hole.
Yeah.
And there's like 30 minutes where like Anne Hathaway's character was launched somewhere else and Matthew McConaughey is stuck in the black hole. I forgot about Anne Hathaway for like 25 to 30 minutes and didn't think about what her character did.
Right until Murph at the end is like, Brand, go look for her. We're not invested in her character. But this story isn't about her. Like, I feel like it may be okay.
No, it's not about her. I'm glad that the story didn't take a super romantic turn with her and Matthew McConaughey. Like, this movie did not need Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway to be like a couple. It insinuates it in a way.
In the end, it leaves you with the question of what's going to happen when he gets there. This movie leaves a lot of questions and a lot of like curiosities at the end. Another reason why I love it. I feel like this movie, like if they really wanted to flesh out everything that we feel like we've missed out on, it could easily be 5 hours long. The movie is about Murph, but it's about a father and daughter. And I feel like maybe Tom's character gets left out a little bit, but
well,
like he kind of does though. He doesn't really serve the purpose that Murph does. It's kind of like, think about it, like a mommy's boy or a daddy's girl. Like, I mean, there's a reason.
Well, like Matthew McConaughey's character shows a lot of interest in Tom's future at the beginning of the movie.
At that parent-teacher conference.
Yeah, we get that parent-teacher conference.
One of my favorites.
And then, like, when he's stuck in space, it doesn't seem like Matthew McConaughey's, like, priority is really Tom. I understand, like, why they chose to do it this way, because, like...
Because Murph's character is tied to the ghost.
Like, him and... that, and, like, him and Murphy didn't leave off on the best note.
Yeah.
He didn't get to say goodbye to his daughter. And I mean, that's really sad. But like when he comes back at the end of the film, when he is like 120 years old, Tom is probably dead at this point, and that doesn't seem to be like a point of like emotion for Matthew McConaughey's character.
Yeah, at the end, like in the last 15 minutes, those are questions. I'm like, well, is Tom alive? Like, obviously, Grandpa Jesse's dead. Or Donald, sorry. You're left with, like, what character was really that important? Which, like, it's a criticism.
Murph was obviously more important in the grand scheme of... I mean, like, she saved the human race. But as a father, it's weird that Matthew McConaughey comes back and, like, Tom is not...
mentioned.
Just not mentioned.
It's not a priority. I feel like it's tough in this movie to, like, make everyone feel important. It's really tough because the point of the movie... is like the transcendence of space-time and like literally communicating to his daughter through a fucking watch and a bookshelf. The full circle at the end of the movie. I wanted to ask you, like, what direction did you think the film was taking at the end? And then when you were like hit with that, like, were you just like...
Regarding what point specifically?
Like, okay, so like Anne Hathaway and Matthew McConaughey, when he detaches from the Endurance and goes in the black hole to like, because it's Newton's law, you have to leave something behind because to be able to propel her forward, because they're without fuel, and so when he goes in, Matthew McConaughey does not know. This is not explained. He does not know if he's going to make it through the black hole, and he does not know that he's going to go home. It's not explained.
He just like he sacrifices.
He has
himself.
to sacrifice himself, but he gets in the fucking Tesseract, and like I don't know. Are you confused by this at all?
The Tesseract part?
Are you confused by any of this?
I don't think so.
We've had these conversations before, I feel like, without this movie in context of like higher dimension and like space and like time.
I understand this part is humans from the future are able to experience like dimensions outside of like the third dimension. This like weird, I'm not even sure how to explain it. This
Okay.
weird like memory lane type thing that
Yeah.
he goes through is like the simplest 3D explanation of like time travel that can be expressed to a human at that point.
Yes.
Right?
You're right. So to lay the groundwork, it would be like there's one dimension, which is like no height, no width, but a point in space. And there's two dimensions, which is 2 points in space, and that has length. And then there's three dimensions, which has height, and we are three dimensions. So like my skin or my body, like I'm in three dimensions. I exist in a three-dimensional plane. And time is the fourth dimension. In the fifth dimension, which is like would be the observation of time, I can experience length and width and moving throughout the space, and I exist within time. But I can't change time or live within any other point in time rather than now. And I can remember time. I can remember time ago, and I can think about time in the future, like that, like may happen. But I can't go back or forward in time. I only exist in the present, which is a slice of space time. And so space time being the fourth dimension, time moves linearly. So the fifth dimension beings experience time like a third dimension, meaning they can travel within it. And the whole point of the movie was gravity and how gravity plays on time. Like gravity and relativity. This is like Einstein's theory of relativity. Like, so if I was on Earth at sea level and I was in orbit, like if I was going around the world, like astronauts have talked about this before, time would move differently for both of us. Like it would be fractions. It would be like fractions of seconds, but the distance from gravity would play on how we experience time. And that's kind of like the whole summary of like what the movie is trying to express. And so like when they're close to Gargantua, since it's a black hole and it has has high gravity, like it has its mass, like, you know, more mass, more gravity.
Time moves slower. And
so that's your bro science for you. The only thing that you can affect space-time with is gravity. And so that's how the movie comes full circle. That's like why everything happened. Did you pick, like, I'm assuming you picked up on that.
Yeah, I did.
I feel like this movie's so fucking smart, and I'm so curious to why it has such a low rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, Rotten Tomatoes isn't always the most reliable. Like, I don't like want to like frame my mind within the reviews of like critics and stuff, because like I will always enjoy this movie no matter what.
What rating does this movie have on
I think it's
Rotten
like a
Tomatoes?
70,
Like 72?
something like that. 73, 76 maybe.
I mean, like, you shouldn't take Rotten Tomatoes for face value all the time, because like an Avengers movie, for example, might have 100% fresh.
Yeah.
But like maybe the average rating among viewers is like a 6.8 out of 10, but that's considered a fresh.
Yeah, and so is
on their
so
scale.
Is this.
So it's like more of like an aggregate rating. Like it's
A lump
only
sum.
rating how many people say it's good, basically. But it's not like the overall value of the film.
Yeah. I feel like this movie, like, maybe too smart for some people. Like, for example, we have a couple coworkers, and one of them was like, "Oh my god, I don't even fucking understand those movies," and then the other one was like, "What? The movie's so fucking good." Like, you know, the couple that I'm talking about. If you can think of a couple that
maybe
there's two of them. They're the older ones.
I won't name them.
Yeah, I won't either, just for the sake of, you know.
I don't get too caught up in the Rotten Tomatoes rating.
It just pisses me off a little bit because I love it so much.
I think like the rating it has on RT is like stops this movie from being overrated, maybe.
Yeah.
Because like, do you follow like IMDb ratings? Because that's like a user website. On there, this movie is top 25 of all time.
Okay, good. Oh my god, you just saved my life. All right.
So like critics and casual moviegoers will rate movies on a different grading scale. Critics might be looking at like pacing and writing and like really technical shit.
Or like how much they want to just be a fucking bitch and like
Sometimes
and like give shit a bad review because I don't like the Titanic.
like gauging what critics think is such a hard thing to like look at because like they're just humans that
Are bitches.
have been given a
I'm sorry.
Well, you say that.
I'm so sorry.
You say that, but there are probably plenty of films that you love that critics have like also adored.
And then there are plenty that I hate and that they love. I know everybody has opinions. I just want to play on like.
Yeah, I mean, this is just one movie that
That's amazing.
And it's not like this movie has a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, this movie is like primarily looked in a positive light. And I agree.
It deserves an 85 at least. Sorry. I'm done. I won't go
No. I mean, like, I think this is good conversation fodder.
All right. Fuck you, whoever gave it a bad review. Fuck you.
I came to this podcast with like criticisms of my own, and I think I understand why some critics would give it a bad review. Although like a straight up negative review seems overbearing.
This is why I don't do social media, because when I look through some of the reviews, it was like 2 out of 5. I'm like, are you a degenerate? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I could never go that low.
Like 3.5 at a minimum.
For me, like, Austin, this is one of your favorite movies of all time.
It is.
Right?
Yeah, I absolutely love this movie. It combines like every element of film that I love.
I mean, like, I can see why. I mean, this movie, there's genius aspects of it that I absolutely adore. The weak points of this movie for me are some of the writing a little bit. And like, feel free to disagree. Tell me I'm wrong, please. I think this movie is very exposition heavy.
Yeah, it is.
And I think that's like that's not just for this movie alone. I think that stretches to other Christopher Nolan movies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're usually being told what's going on like directly with his movies. But this movie is visual and expositionary at the same time.
Yes. Okay. So listen to me.
I don't mean to blindside you by that.
You're not blindsiding me.
I want you to come at me with a retort for that.
So I think this ties back again to Nolan films are an idea conveyed. Everything serves the idea rather than the idea serving the characters. That's my rebuttal.
I agree with that.
It is.
You said that earlier too, right?
Yes, that's the way Nolan writes a film. Like, to me. And that's why they're different. That's why they're different than other movies. Tarantino films are not the same as Nolan films. We know that, and they're both grounded.
Different.
They're both grounded in practical effect, but in the way they're written.
Tarantino movies have a lot of like arbitrary dialogue that like doesn't amount to anything, but like you appreciate pointless conversations between characters. This movie is like all plot. The dialogue always serves a purpose, and that's a good thing. I mean, that's a great thing in writing. But sometimes it leads to like characters feeling a little more flat than they should be.
No, and I agree with you, but in this movie specifically, I think it's okay. And here's why. A scene specifically that I want to talk about, which is like the most like famous part of the movie, I feel like, when the messages span 23 years. When they come back from Miller's Planet and they've spent more time than they wish they would have spent there because they had to, you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen the movie, what the fuck are you doing? Go back. Hey, stop. And you go back and listen and you fucking watch that movie. All right. The whole point of this scene is to like convey the loss of time, which is like the theme of the movie.
Yeah,
and
it's done well too, because when Dr. Romilly comes into the scene and he's got like gray
in his beard, yes,
and like from this point on, his acting, his mannerisms are of like that of somebody that's aged 20 years.
Yeah, I feel like we are in shock just as much as the characters are. It's so disorienting for them to be like, it's been 23 years, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, it's been decades. And then when you get to see that, it's like, this was the cost of entry when he left. This scene specifically is the pinnacle of, like, Nolan scenes to me. The whole point of the movie is to convey time, the fight against time, the intimacy of love, and, like, we, as human beings, unfortunately, we love people around us, and unfortunately, time takes us all. And, like, we can't get back time. We have to live in the present. And, like, people are just left in memory. And when Matthew McConaughey is crying over these messages, I can't help but just feel, like, his loss. Because his kids have the loss of, like, thinking he'll never come home.
Yeah, they've, like, given up on him in a way.
Yeah, and, like...
This scene is, like, super emotionally, like, resonant.
And
it really is.
And Hans Zimmer's score on top of it. Like, I'm not going to, like, butcher the microphone with, like, trying to imitate it, but, like, I can only explain this score as, like, it just feels so mournful. Yeah, it feels so, like, ambient, and it just conveys this sense of loss throughout the film, the emptiness of space, and it's beautiful. But the characters and their dialogue doesn't have to be so I don't know how to describe it. Like they don't have to be so like
Like, in
bravado. Yeah, like I don't want the dialogue in these movies to feel like a central character commanding the attention of the screen. I feel like the dialogue only serves the purpose to convey emotion rather than like
It's more about the journey than it is the people that are like on the journey in a way.
Yeah, it's the dialogue serves the story and the plot rather than the characters. But there's still like the characters themselves, their dialogue is impactful to each other as well. I mean, I shouldn't like exclusively make it one or the other. I just have a hard time like wanting to frame this film in a different way than what it is because I feel like it's so unique in the way because like Nolan is a unique director. It's just hard for me to want more than what I got.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that.
Sorry, I went on a little bit of a ramble session there, but it also is
No,
'cause there's alcohol in me.
I think I persuaded you in a way to do that.
Yeah, I fucking love this movie, man.
In all honesty, like I love this movie too. I thought this movie was like excellent. I kick myself for waiting so long to watch it because I mean, it came out 7 years ago, and I just now saw it for the first time last week.
I'm so glad I suggested it for the podcast because I feel like if you would have seen this before, we would have talked about it at work or like talked about it like when we were hanging out. And like, but I feel like we do this, talk about this every time. But when we talk about shit on like at length, it helps create such a sense of like importance to like everything we do.
The only reason I'm like throwing criticisms out, I don't want to say so harshly, but like this movie is a very well regarded movie, so like I wanted to come at it with like a more realistic like
No, I 100% agree.
Austin, you know how I am. I'm like a pretty cynical person and I like to point out the flaws of everything to my own detriment.
I wouldn't. You have your moments though, it's funny.
Yeah, I do have my moments, and I think I'm having a moment for this podcast, even though I thought this movie was amazing.
Yeah, no.
I mean, like, I really do think this movie's amazing. I'm just, like, I'm pinpointing things about Christopher Nolan's filmmaking that, like, doesn't hit me for some reason. Mm-hmm. Sometimes his movies lack humanity, and this is the first time...
Okay. Oh.
This movie is the first time that actually, like, hit emotional undertones for me. Because, like, films like Inception are, like, really cool and smart, but, like, they, like, lack emotional resonance.
Yeah,
and Memento is the same way, too.
Their concept is cool, but maybe it doesn't leave, like, the emotional impact that you would have wanted from, like, such a, like, deep concept.
Yeah,
and
like...
this movie, like, serves that.
Like, we always go back to Manchester by the Sea, because we talked about it on the show.
Strictly emotion.
That movie is, like, 100% emotion. And, like, Christopher Nolan's movies are, like, 100%, not 100%, but, like, very high percentage efficiency in, like, filmmaking. This movie changed that a little bit because, I mean, like, the whole aspect of Matthew McConaughey and his family actually, like, did strike an emotional resonance with me.
I think this is the best Nolan film I've seen.
In that aspect, I think it's the best for me.
Just for all those reasons that you just listed.
It's not my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. I think that might actually go to The Prestige.
That's a fucking good movie too. That's in my top 10. This movie and that movie are in my top 10.
I like The Prestige and Memento a little bit more than this movie, but
Christian Bale's an incredible actor.
Yeah, Christian Bale has done some good shit.
I feel like Hugh Jackman needs to come back for a Christopher Nolan movie.
I could see that.
I liked him in The Prestige a lot. Not to diverge a little bit, but yeah.
Well, like, because, like, Christopher Nolan, like, often reuses actors across his movies. Like, Michael Caine is, like, a regular mainstay. And, like, we've seen Anne Hathaway in multiple movies by him. I would like to see Hugh Jackman in another Christopher Nolan movie.
I'd be really curious to what he does next after Tenet. I think neither of us have seen it, but I've heard enough about it to where I feel like he needs to move away from the more technical aspects of a movie and come back to, because I feel like that movie's concept may have been lacking. Like, again, I haven't seen it, so I shouldn't speak too heavily about it.
It's got about the same, not to go back to Rotten Tomatoes, but I mean, it has about the same score as this movie does.
But I feel like I haven't heard anything about, like, the emotion of that movie, rather than, like, that movie's just super fucking confusing. I feel like maybe he needs to come back to, like, more of a humanity within it. I haven't seen Dunkirk either, and I know it's a war film, so I shouldn't speak where I don't know.
I think the problem is he needs to scale down the implications of his stories, because, like, this movie is about saving the world. Memento is a movie about one man with a small problem. And
Yeah.
like Batman, I mean, like that's a superhero movie, so it's a little bit harder to gauge. But like movies with smaller scale problems, I think are usually more effective for me, at least personally. Once you get into like the whole aspect of saving the entire world, it's hard to like rein in on like certain things, like
Yeah.
certain themes. And but I think like considering the scale of this movie, it does a really good job.
I know we both love the movie. I wanted to like add a little bit of a personal flair on the podcast a little bit, and you don't have to answer these questions.
No,
as
go for
deeply.
it. I'm an open book.
I've already established that I'm a very emotional, like empathetic person, and that's just my nature. That's the way I've always been. This movie specifically like makes me think about memories and like moments in time where like this movie makes me appreciate like mournful moments, and like I wanted to make a point of like human beings, we know what like love is, and sometimes love is expressed through mourning. And for example, some people fall in and out of love, and like some people like will do that forever. Like they do that with like partner to partner, and sometimes love can only be experienced the sense of loss rather than like intimate presence between two people, and love can be experienced through like loss. That's one of the points I wanted to make. And then like one of the questions I had, because I can think of places like in my life where like things I might want to sit in on again because we are bound by time and we can only move forward through it in like present and like linearly through the now, like things are like lost to memory. Is there like any specific moment in your life that you would like to sit in on again, like how Matthew McConaughey's character does when like through the bookshelf and shit?
Well, it depends on the what's the word?
It-
Not the consequences, the conditions.
like the context of the
Yeah, the context.
yeah. You don't have to
like-
answer this as deeply, like it doesn't have to be super, but like
Like, could I interject on the situation that we're talking about? Like, could I affect it? Because I don't. If we're talking about moments that I want to change, I don't want to like look back and like stare at me in a certain situation where I like maybe was embarrassing or mean or like ignorant or something. I mean, like if I could go back and like somehow slip myself a message to not be the way I was, then my answer to your question is absolutely. But if it was just coming to like looking back and
And
like
observe.
and observing, no, hard
Yeah.
no. Unless there was like a lesson to be learned. But I feel like at this point in my life, maybe I've already learned the lesson, because like there's already a lot of moments where I look back and I'm like, man, I was like so stupid when I did that thing, or when I thought that, or like believed that. So I don't know. I mean, that's a hard question to,
I know,
to answer.
yeah, I know that's you gave the answer that I thought you might give. It's a like
There's no specific moment that I can think of, because I think things have turned out really well. I mean, like I wouldn't change the past, if that is the question.
the movie is not meant to change the past; it's meant to change the future. You answered that perfectly. That's what I kind of expected you to say. Which is, but I did want to. There are moments in my life where I'd like to look back on, or like to know like the facts of the situation rather than like leave them to my
Just
to like
what
my
you know
own
at the
to what
time.
I remember, and like because my memory is also tied to my emotion that I felt at the time, rather than looking at things through a like an objective lens.
Well, yeah, memories are
Memory-
impossible to look back on, except for
What
through
through
what
my
you felt.
lens, yeah. There are things in my life that I'd love to like know, to like know the factual things about, but love can sometimes like come through mourning, and that was kind of my point. And like there are moments in my life where love can only be felt through an immense sense of loss, which we all are familiar with. And I'm not trying to come at this like a depressive like lens or anything, but like life is a very interesting thing. Not to get like too fucking deep, but like
Existential.
I have an immense sense of gratitude for my life. Not to say that I've had it bad, because my life is incredible, but I have experienced things like we all have. I've experienced things to where like I felt like I've been in a fucking movie. When I was like 12, I felt like I felt too much emotion for like a young child to feel, and like there are moments in my life where like I've like been through the ringer, but my life is still really good. I'm so thankful for the life I live. I have like where I live in the beautiful USA, regardless of the criticisms you have to say about it, or like the current time we live through, and like, you know, the unfortunate reality of like social media and like the negatives that come throughout like our daily lives. Like, I'm still super grateful for the life I live, regardless of all the bullshit that I've had to deal with. Like, my life is good. As I've gotten older, I've appreciated all the bullshit I've had to deal with, even though they like hurt.
It's character building.
Yeah.
It's just the way that life is. Yeah, they're character building. I mean, like, it's necessary for us to move through life.
It's necessary.
I mean, like, as much as it sucks, I mean, sometimes that like some of these things in life do suck. This movie portrays, in a way, it's like kind of fantasy-like, of like being able to send messages back in time and all that. We all wish we could do that. We're getting like an existential.
I'm not. Yeah, sorry.
Here.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to drown us out.
No, you're okay.
Put us down or anything. But this movie just makes me think about those things, and like, and it's not in a negative light or anything. Like, I'm still really like thankful for like everything. Like to like breathe in air every day. Like this. I'm not trying to be a fucking weirdo, but like
it can always be worse.
Yeah,
it could always be so much worse.
I've just like, even throughout my daily life, I've just trying to have more gratitude, even though like there are things that like have happened in my life that like hang up some people forever on that, like, and they always just, movies like this make me think about things like that, and like, and I wasn't trying to come through like through a depressive lens, but like in a to come through it like in a like, man, like life is it's a crazy thing.
Be grateful that we don't live in a world where the dirt has turned on us.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that we can only eat corn.
It could always be so much worse, and we have it so good right now. And like I feel like a lot of people think the world's going to end every day.
People have thought that for years, but you know what?
The second coming of Christ.
The earth will just keep rolling on, and humans will keep rolling on, and that's just how it'll be.
You ready to wrap this thing up, man?
I don't know. I mean, like, do you have any more questions regarding the
Finish
film?
your thought. I thought you were about to wrap it up.
Well, no. I was going to ask you, do you have any more questions or thoughts?
I'm just really glad you got to watch this movie.
I'd waited so long to watch it, and
I've waited so long for I've waited so long. We've quoted this movie like indirectly all night.
That was unintentional. That was pun unintended.
That's hilarious.
I mean, this movie is fantastic. I mean, I really do love it. And even though I was pretty vocal about like criticisms.
I felt the same criticisms though, but yes.
I was just trying to like be like a voice of reason.
Yeah,
so
of
like
course.
We wouldn't be on here like gushing about it.
But like, I love you, Christopher Nolan.
I knew that you would fill the role of the gushing, and I would be the one to like come in and try and break it down a little bit. In all honesty, I did really love this movie.
That's pretty much our personalities.
I
love it.
There is one scene I would like to pinpoint though that we didn't talk about. It's when Matthew McConaughey, he's agreed to go on the mission to space. Yeah. And like he's having trouble like reconciling things with young Murph. And we have the scene where he's like driving away from the farmhouse. Mm-hmm. Like we kind of overhear like the NASA
like the launch,
the countdown while he's driving away, and he's like got tears in his eyes, and his like daughter's crying, and we shoot straight to like him launching into space. That's an all-time movie moment right there. I mean, like the way that's portrayed is amazing. Perfect. Yeah, I don't know. That's my favorite scene in the movie right there.
Yeah, it's like the first high tension moment in the film. Yeah, I feel like it's incredible because it moves straight from his decision to like him being in space. And that conversation with Murph, him saying, your mother like said something to me when you guys were born. Now we're just here as memories for our kids. If you literally can deconstruct that for hours, because eventually we all become memories for someone. And yeah, even that scene, how you said, just the voiceover of like the Houston countdown kind of thing, his tears in his eyes, like it's a great scene. That scene, the detach, No Time for Caution, like when he detaches from Anne Hathaway, No Time for Caution when they, you know, Matthew McConaughey's like, come on, TARS, like that movie fills that scene fills the role of like action for me a little bit. If you're like, if you just, I felt like I was on the edge of my seat
Yeah.
watching that. And then, like when the messages span 23 years, that's like, those are probably like the four scenes that, probably might be the most impactful.
I agree.
At least like they're, probably like the four highlights of the film.
Piss break.
Are we done gushing about the movie?
That's up to you, really. Unless there's more things you want to bring up. There's only one more aspect that I can think of.
Go right ahead. I know one thing I might talk about, but I don't know if it's worth giving much attention to, but go ahead.
This is one last criticism on my part.
Fuck you. Go ahead.
No, fair enough.
No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
The entire plot of the movie bases on Earth no longer being sustainable, right? I think the way the movie portrays Earth in its dying days doesn't tell the audience how dire the situation is, because like we only see Matthew McConaughey's like most close environment.
Is
like
the farm.
Yeah, I mean, like, we do see, like, the dust storms and all that show up, but we don't see how it affects Earth on, like, a wider scale. I mean, like, maybe it's, like, it's just left up to imagination. Like,
Well,
maybe that's what Christopher Nolan was going for.
I don't think it's the point of the movie, which has been, like, my rebuttal to everything. But the point, there was one thing that Professor Brand says to Cooper when he first arrives at the NASA station, and he's like, because NASA was not supposed to be in the public eye, like they disbanded NASA because of budget cuts, and like he says, well, the public couldn't know that their tax dollars were going towards NASA rather than food or whatever. They want to worry about what's happening on Earth, not like leaving it. He said, Cooper says like something like, I thought that you were like disbanded or whatever. And he says, well, because they like wouldn't drop bombs on the other countries. And he says it might have been an immediate solution. In the long term, it wouldn't have served a purpose, because like with less people means less production, which is like economics for you. Like if there's less people to work, then there's like less product being made. And so I think that was like maybe one of the things, like politics.
Like there's no point like waging war if like every country is struggling to produce means for the everyday individual. But I wanted to be. Did you want to be shown
told
it in a way? Like I mean, like maybe you're right. That wasn't the point of the movie. But I feel like it would have made the stakes feel a little higher before they went up into space. Maybe. But that's just like a.
It's I understand your criticism though.
Yeah.
Coming from pessimistic Alex Getter.
Exactly. I mean, like,
well,
you're good cop, I'm bad cop in
yes,
this situation.
It's all right, which is a valid criticism. But like, the main theme of the movie is it hangs between Cooper and Murph, and I feel while we could play shoulda, woulda, coulda, maybe. So say we like did know the specifics of everything in like the whole world and like what the situation is, it would remove the intimacy between the characters. It would turn instead of this movie being about Murphy and Cooper, it would turn it into like War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise. And so that's my rebuttal.
No,
but
that makes sense. I mean, like it's already a movie that's on a pretty large scale with people trying to save the entire human race
through interstellar travel.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was a strength that it only showed you the issues within like the close proximity to like Matthew McConaughey and his family.
I think the intimacy is a positive.
Family is a really big theme in Christopher Nolan movies, because Memento is about family. Inception, like Leonardo DiCaprio's character is like concerned about his family. Even Batman. I mean, like Batman's entire like intentions as a character is driven by like the death of his family. Yeah. So I mean, like Nolan,
he's a family man.
Yeah, clearly he has like motivations to make movies about family as a theme. So that makes sense. I won't die on the hill of.
Did you write a negative review on Rotten Tomatoes?
Did I?
No, I'm just trying to.
I thought you meant like a user review.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just saying.
I don't think my review here has been.
No, I'm just
negative.
messing with you. There is a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas with this movie, I feel like.
Yeah, it tells the story that the Nolan brothers wanted to, and I think it was very effective.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that his brother helped with the screenwriting.
Yeah, I think they've written a few scripts together. I want to think that Jonathan Nolan had script writing credits on Inception and The Prestige, maybe. But, tell me if I'm wrong, whoever, listens to this or.
DM me on Tumblr.
Yeah, yeah. To wrap up the discussion, Austin, what would you grade Interstellar, and what were some of the strengths and weaknesses that you saw personally?
If I was gonna rank it on like a good day, I'd be like 10 out of 10. Would watch again. Realistically, like our criticisms were, for the most part, pretty realistic, and your voice of reason helps me from being like, oh man, dude, 10 out of 10. But probably like an 8 out of 10. There are like things that.
Stop being so conservative. You don't want to give it an 8 out of 10.
Nah, 8 out of 10.
Give me your true score.
8 out of 10's good, man. I like.
I was gonna go higher than that.
Fuck you. All right, 10 out of 10. Like 9 out of 10. I don't know. Like there's I love this movie like on any bad day. I feel like the intimacy and the high level of like emotion that the movie creates makes me love it so much because, well, also I've discussed that's my personality. I love movies like this. I live for shit like this. This shit lights my soul on fire. I absolutely love this movie. It makes me feel and think on such a deep level where I can only appreciate like and be thankful that this movie made me feel that, because as an adult, I'm a fucking adult now, I love moments that just like make me step back and think about like, hey man, don't be such a bitch, and like just be grateful and enjoy life. And like this movie helps me do that. And I've always been a movie person, and this is like at the top of my list on like everything that I love about a movie. And so that's why, like, if I was really going to be like, hey man, 10 out of 10, that would be my reason. But like with your criticisms and my gushing, I would say like maybe like an 8.5 or like a 9. But like practical effects, characters, story, major themes, along with the criticisms, that would be my score. And for you, I would imagine something similar, but please fill me in.
Yeah, no, my opinion of the movie is very similar in a way. I really loved the visual aspect of this movie. I mean, the directing, the way that space was shown when the astronauts entered the wormhole was like especially amazing. Casting was amazing. The acting for the most part was pretty good. I mean, especially Matthew McConaughey in his role was incredible.
It's stellar.
All that stuff was amazing. I mean, it was fantastic. The only criticisms I had towards the movie were sometimes the dialogue was maybe a little overly expositionary, and sometimes the music was a little too loud for the dialogue. I mean, aside from that, I don't know, I can't fault it. It was on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a 8.5 as well.
Good.
But in terms of space movies, this would be a 10.
This movie feels yeah, like space movie, like sci-fi movie. Like it doesn't feel like overdone.
I really felt like small as a human being after watching this.
Yeah.
Like earlier in the show, I mentioned that after I watched it for the first time, I wandered through my house drunkenly in the dark, feeling like nothing. That's true. It made me feel like small scale in the grand scheme of like galaxies and the infinite space that is space. So yeah, 8.5 I think is a fair score for me, at least.
Again, I'm very glad that you got to watch this movie for like the first time. This has been my favorite conversation that we've had so far.
Me too. I think that not going by a scene by scene basis was a strength for us.
I think moving forward, we'll have to start doing that more. And I feel
agree.
like it may help us expand a little bit on like things maybe like not being so I don't know, like objective, and maybe come at things at a little bit more. I feel like we did that in the last one. Like come at a little bit more a subjective with Promising Young Woman. Sorry, I'm drunk. We did go see a little bit scene by scene, but we got to touch a little bit towards the end. I feel like this is a good movie to maybe change the
format,
the structure and the formula of the way we do it.
Yeah.
This has been really fun. I'm very patiently anticipating your next suggestion, and I know it's going to be an album.
Did I tell you that?
I've known that.
I did tell you that, actually.
And I thought we were going to do Limp Bizkit because we had made a joke about it.
Oh, God. No. How would you feel if you went from Interstellar to Limp Bizkit?
Well, I'd be a little bit less excited.
I feel like that'd be like a significant downgrade.
Okay, I just want to. I know what I have in my head that you're going to suggest, but I don't think it's going to be it. But I'm excited. I always try to guess.
Tell me what you think it's going to be.
I thought it was going to be a Beatles album. Am I fucking right?
Austin, you were right.
Fuck it, let's go, baby. Let's go. I'm a fucking genius.
I think maybe like as a human being, I'm very easy to read.
God, let's go. I'm so excited.
So yeah, for the next podcast, I want to talk about one of the most popular bands in existence that reinvented the wheel for all of popular music. In Austin, you actually bought me when you were in Disney, you bought me a card for this album.
Fuck yeah, let's go.
Not only is this one of the most popular bands in popular music, this album also has one of the most famous album covers of all time. I want to talk about Abbey Road by the Beatles. Austin, are you well versed in the Beatles at all?
I am not, but actually one of the reasons why I thought you might suggest this, because it was kind of like on my radar, is that I was listening to Blackbird off of the White Album.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned to you that I was listening to Tears in Heaven by
Eric Clapton.
Yeah. And then I was like, man, I miss this. Like, I love this sound. Like, I just love this era of music. And I was like, fuck, I need to go back and listen to Blackbird. Because I know that song from my brother. And because I'm not very familiar with the Beatles, but I love that song. And I was like, wouldn't it be crazy if Alex Getter was like, hey, man, I'm going to suggest a Beatles album. And I'm like, that would make sense because I got him that card. And that might be the direction he takes. But I'll just wait patiently. And now I'm like, yes, I got it right.
This has been the direction that I've been meaning to go in for a while. It was actually almost the recommendation that replaced Promising Young Woman until I saw that movie.
And then you were like, we got to talk about it.
Yeah, I feel like my last few recommendations were all like newer things. I mean, it was like I'm Thinking of Ending Things and Promising Young Woman. So I want to go back. It's been a while since we talked about something pre-2000.
Yeah.
So we're going back to 1969.
I'm excited because
this one.
You'll be able to educate the fuck out of me because I am not familiar with the Beatles at all. I'm not invested like you are, and I'm excited to hear like your gushing and my criticisms this time.
That's okay. I didn't get invested in like the entire Beatles discography till like 2018.
Yeah, I remember when you listened to it all.
Although I grew up on them and I always loved them, but I mean like nowadays, I mean they're like one of my favorite bands of all time, and with good reason. I mean I think that hopefully you agree. But if not, I mean, it'll lead to interesting discussion when we get there.
I'm excited to take this direction. It'll be a fucking vibe for like the next few weeks while I'm listening. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fun, man.
Yeah.
All right, we'll come at you next time, guys. Thanks.
All right. Adios.